What's a serendipity? Frozen hot chocolate, extra peanut butter sauce on the side. Close that place down. That's how I do it.
Okay, tell me what I need to
party.
get, because I
Peanut butter frozen hot chocolate, extra thick, and then you get peanut butter sauce on the side.
They told us this was just a love story. They told us this was just another Hollywood adaptation. But what exploded behind the cameras was nothing short of a nightmare betrayal. Accusations, lies, money, power, and a storm so dark it threatens to destroy careers forever. And the truth that is now clawing its way to the surface is so disturbing, so explosive, so unforgivable, that once you hear it, you will never look at these stars the same way again. What started as a dream project quickly descended into a nightmare so twisted, so gut-wrenching, that even the most hardened industry insiders were left speechless. Because when you peel back the glossy posters and the red carpet smiles, what you find lurking in the shadows of this production is a chaos so raw, so unfiltered, so dangerously real that it becomes impossible to separate truth from manipulation. And the deeper you dive into the tangled web surrounding the adaptation of It Ends With Us, the more you realize this was never just about a movie. This was about power, control, ego, betrayal, and a slow-burning implosion that no one saw coming, or maybe they did, and chose to stay silent because the stakes were just too high, and the players involved too influential to challenge. And it begins innocently enough with an acclaimed director, Justin Baldoni, and a Hollywood darling, Blake Lively, coming together to bring a beloved novel to life. Fans were thrilled, headlines celebrated the casting, and the internet buzzed with excitement. But almost immediately behind the scenes, whispers began to emerge, subtle at first, then louder and darker and far more sinister. And these were not just rumors about creative disagreements. These were allegations of manipulation, of gaslighting, of calculated image control, of legal threats, and even deeper, of a deliberate attempt to rewrite the narrative of what really happened on that set. And as we begin to unravel the truth, it becomes clear that what was marketed as a faithful, emotional adaptation of Colleen Hoover's story about resilience and trauma had somehow mutated into a battleground where personal agendas clashed with artistic vision, and where the fallout would ripple far beyond the film itself. And it is here that the story turns from creative conflict into something far more alarming, because according to multiple insiders, Blake Lively initially embraced the comedic touches, the couture costumes, the lighter moments that Justin Baldoni wanted to balance with emotional gravity. She smiled on set, laughed during read-throughs, gave notes, suggested changes, picked outfits posed for behind the scenes, photos with apparent joy, and yet later in court claimed that she had been creatively overruled, ignored, sidelined, and disrespected. And when confronted with text messages, production logs, emails, and even voice recordings that suggested she had been actively involved in those very decisions, she doubled down, claiming she had been pressured, manipulated, coerced into going along. And this is where the emotional intensity skyrockets, because now the audience is no longer watching a disagreement between artist and director. They are witnessing a full-scale collapse of trust and credibility. And when Baldoni countered with a staggering $400 million defamation lawsuit, everything changed. This was no longer a dispute over tone or costumes or script changes. This was war, and into this battlefield stepped someone no one expected: his wife. A woman who had quietly been present through much of the production, offering insight, consulting behind the scenes, observing dynamics, and suddenly she spoke out, breaking her silence with a series of revelations that rocked the industry to its core. She claimed that she had personally witnessed Lively embracing the comedic rewrites. She had seen her laughing about the lines, making jokes, giving feedback, and even insisting on certain designer pieces for her character. Lily, she described in detail how Lively lit up during wardrobe sessions, how she selected couture outfits that directly contradicted the novel's depiction of Lily as financially struggling. And she insisted that Lively's later testimony in court was misleading, inaccurate, and strategically crafted to shift blame and preserve her brand. And now everything is spiraling, because if Baldoni can prove that Lively misrepresented her own involvement, the consequences could be catastrophic for her career, her reputation, her future projects. And as these bombshells continue to detonate, the public finds itself caught in a whirlwind of conflicting narratives, half-truths, and legal maneuvers, and the tension is unbearable. Fans are divided, some fiercely defending Lively, accusing Baldoni of using his power to silence a female voice. Others standing by, Baldoni insisting the evidence is overwhelming and that Lively is rewriting history to protect herself from backlash. And what makes this even more chilling is the sheer amount of documentation still being kept under wraps, according to Baldoni and his legal team. There are hundreds of messages, recordings, meeting notes, and behind-the-scenes communications that have yet to be revealed. And if those align with his wife's testimony, then Lively could be facing a total collapse of credibility. Because in Hollywood, once your integrity is questioned, once it is proven that you lied under oath or manipulated public perception for personal gain, the industry turns on you fast, brutal, and without mercy. And yet, despite all this, despite the looming threat of legal destruction, the core of this story remains deeply emotional, because it was never just about costumes or rewrites or jokes. It was about a woman named Lily, a story about breaking cycles, surviving trauma, reclaiming identity, and somehow that story got buried under layers of ego, fear, and betrayal. And now, as the drama continues to unfold, as insiders leak more details and fans piece together the puzzle, the suspense grows heavier with each passing day, because everyone wants to know what really happened. Who is telling the truth? Who is lying? Who is hiding behind a carefully curated public image? And who is about to watch everything they built come crashing down, because the truth is coming whether they are ready or not, and once it hits, there will be no going back. As the revelations continue to pour out, the chaos only intensifies, because suddenly the narrative is no longer a simple dispute between two powerful figures in Hollywood. It becomes a labyrinth of secrets, contradictions, and devastating truths that refuse to stay hidden, and every time one detail surfaces, another even darker claim follows, until the entire story feels like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. And at the center of this firestorm is the undeniable fact that Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, once hailed as the dream pairing for this beloved adaptation, have become bitter adversaries locked in a battle that threatens to tear apart not just their reputations, but the very foundation of the film itself. And the deeper you dig, the more you realize how terrifyingly fragile the entire house of cards really is, because insiders insist that Lively was not only actively participating in the rewrites, but often spearheading them, suggesting lines, cracking jokes, celebrating lighter tones, and smiling at the way the film seemed to balance darkness with humor. And yet when the backlash hit, when fans online began criticizing leaked photos of couture costumes and playful scenes that seemed at odds with the heavy themes of the book, she shifted gears, presenting herself as the victim of a controlling male director who supposedly ignored her instincts and forced her into creative directions she never supported. And that pivot was not just subtle, it was a calculated move that left those who had been there stunned and outraged, because they had watched her laugh through table reads and gush about designer outfits. And now they were seeing her deny it all in sworn testimony, and the shock of that contradiction became a weapon in Baldoni's hands as he and his team prepared to dismantle her credibility, piece by piece, with cold, hard evidence that could not be explained away. And then came his wife, stepping into the spotlight with her own account, and her words carried weight because she was there. She observed, she listened, and she remembered, and her version painted a picture so damning, so relentless, that it stripped away any illusions of innocence, describing Lively as not just a participant, but an enthusiastic driver of the very decisions she later disowned. And suddenly the spotlight shifted again, because if the wife was telling the truth, if her observations matched the yet unreleased evidence, then Lively's entire case could crumble like sand under a crashing wave. And what makes this even more unbearable is the scale of the lawsuit. $400 million, a number so massive, it hangs like a guillotine over every court date, every filing, every testimony, and the public cannot look away. They dissect the leaks, they argue on social media. They defend their idols with passion and rage, because to them, this is no longer just about a film, it is about betrayal, about hypocrisy, about watching someone they admired reveal a darker side, and each twist of the knife, each contradictory message or log entry that leaks out, keeps the tension alive, ensuring that no one can look away for even a moment, because every second feels like the one where the next devastating piece of evidence will drop, and fans are left wondering how far this can go. How much more can be revealed before someone's career is shattered beyond repair? Because already questions are swirling about whether studios will risk casting Lively again, if she is found to have misled under oath, or whether Baldoni himself will survive the backlash if the public perceives him as weaponizing his wife's testimony to destroy her. And in this war of perception, truth becomes slippery, elusive, fragile. And yet it is the only currency that matters, because once the court rules, Once the evidence is laid bare, there will be no more speculation, only fallout, and that fallout will not be gentle. It will be brutal and merciless, and as the weeks drag on, the suspense only grows heavier, the walls close tighter, and the clock ticks louder. Because everyone knows the climax is coming, and when it does, the blast will be so loud, so destructive, that Hollywood itself will feel the shockwaves. And just when it feels like the chaos cannot possibly grow darker, another wave of revelations crashes over this scandal, with a force so merciless that it leaves everyone gasping for air, because suddenly what was once dismissed as petty creative disagreements becomes a high-stakes psychological war, where every word, every email, every text message is a weapon, and the battlefield is no longer confined to the courtroom, but spills into the relentless court of public opinion, where reputations rise and fall in real time, and the sheer weight of this spectacle is enough to shake the entire industry to its core. Because as insiders leak fragments of the evidence, the narrative spins faster and faster into a vortex of contradictions. Blake Lively, once celebrated for her charisma and her carefully polished image, now finds herself painted as a manipulator. Someone who allegedly embraced comedic rewrites only to later deny them, as if erasing the past could undo what had already been documented. And fans who once adored her are left questioning whether they ever truly knew her, or whether the elegant exterior was always just a carefully crafted facade, hiding a ruthless instinct for self-preservation. And the shock of that possibility ignites rage among those who feel betrayed because they invested trust and admiration into a star they thought stood for authenticity. And now every denial, every statement, every legal maneuver feels like another layer of deception. And Justin Baldoni, whose name once carried the aura of heartfelt sincerity, now fights like a man possessed, determined to prove that the truth is on his side, armed with a mountain of documentation and bolstered by his wife, who continues to step out of the shadows with testimony that cuts like a knife through the fog of confusion, because she is not merely repeating secondhand gossip. She is describing what she saw, what she heard, moments when Lively laughed at lines. She now disowns moments when she handpicked gowns that later drew backlash for clashing with the novel's themes, and the weight of her words grows heavier with each passing day, because if she testifies formally under oath and her account matches the digital paper trail, then Lively's entire defense could collapse in an instant. And yet the suspense tightens, because the public knows that truth is rarely clean. It is messy, it is tangled, and perception often matters more than fact. And already lines are drawn across social media armies of fans tearing each other apart in defense of their chosen side, some accusing Baldoni of cruelty and opportunism, of hiding behind his wife to destroy a woman, others insisting that Lively is nothing more than a master manipulator who underestimated how much evidence would come to light. And every tweet, every leaked screenshot, every whispered account from crew members adds more fuel to this inferno, until the scandal is no longer about one film, but about the very machinery of Hollywood itself. How stars protect their brands, how directors guard their legacies, how lies become truths when repeated often enough, and how reputations can evaporate in an instant under the harsh light of exposure. And what makes this even more unbearable to witness is the astronomical sum at stake: $400 million, hanging like a shadow over everything, and the knowledge that such money could end careers, bankrupt futures, and shatter families makes every revelation feel like a countdown to destruction. And as the days turn into weeks, the anticipation becomes suffocating, because everyone is waiting for the hammer to drop, for the one piece of evidence so damning that it obliterates all doubt and ends this nightmare. Yet with every passing day, more contradictions emerge, more tension builds, and the loop tightens around the audience, pulling them deeper into the darkness with no release, no escape, and no way of knowing whose truth will survive once the dust finally settles. And now, as the story barrels toward its breaking point, the chaos mutates into something darker, heavier, almost unbearable to witness. Because what began as a simple adaptation has transformed into a merciless storm that devours everything in its path, tearing apart trust, reputations, friendships, careers, and leaving behind nothing but jagged fragments of once untouchable public images. And the deeper you go, the more monstrous it becomes. Because this is no longer just Blake Lively against Justin Baldoni. This is an entire industry holding its breath as one of its most high-profile battles unfolds in real time, and the stakes could not be higher. because whispers of unreleased recordings, messages, and meeting notes suggest that the worst is yet to come, that somewhere buried deep within those files lies evidence capable of shattering any last shred of defense. And insiders claim Baldoni's legal team is sitting on a stockpile of nuclear-level revelations, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash them, ensuring maximum devastation. And the very thought of that is enough to send shivers down the spines of fans and critics alike. Because if that evidence proves what his wife has already testified, if it shows Lively, not just agreeing but pushing, laughing, insisting, demanding that the comedic rewrites stay, that the couture outfits define the character's look, then her credibility does not just crack. It disintegrates into dust, and with it, her carefully curated brand of elegance, authenticity, and strength collapses into rubble, and the sheer brutality of such a fall is almost impossible to imagine. A superstar adored for years reduced to a cautionary tale of hubris and deception, and yet, as the tension strangles tighter, questions begin to haunt the audience. Questions about what drives people to lie under oath. Questions about whether brand preservation is worth the destruction of trust. Questions about how far Hollywood elites will go to rewrite history when the truth threatens to consume them. And with every new whisper, every new leak, the outrage swells louder, angrier. More relentless fans cry, betrayal, they rage against hypocrisy, they lash out at manipulation, and they cling to every tiny piece of evidence that promises clarity. But the more clarity emerges, the darker the picture becomes, because now it is not just about lies and lawsuits. It is about the human cost, the toll this nightmare exacts on everyone involved, and Baldoni himself, though seemingly armored by truth, begins to reveal cracks, because even as he pushes forward with ferocity, there are whispers that the pressure is eroding him too, that the endless war is consuming his focus, his energy, his family. And though his wife has stepped into the fire with a defiance that shocks many, the question remains, at what cost? Because once you step into the arena, there is no stepping back, no retreat. And every word she utters, every observation she shares becomes another reason for critics to doubt her motives and question her loyalties, and yet she refuses to fall silent. She insists she saw the truth. She insists she will not let lies define her husband. And so the battle escalates beyond art, beyond contracts, beyond reason itself, spiraling into a nightmare where each side is trapped by their own choices, unable to escape without blood on their hands. And the most terrifying part is that no matter who wins, no matter who loses the film itself, the story that once promised hope, resilience, healing is now forever stained by the carnage surrounding it. Its legacy mutated into scandal, its message drowned in noise, and its audience left shattered and disillusioned, because they came for a love story. But instead, they were dragged into a war that exposed the ugliest truths of fame, ego, and betrayal, and the suspense loops endlessly. The questions never stop, the drama never fades, and the storm never weakens. It only grows stronger, darker, more suffocating, pulling everyone deeper into the abyss with no hope of release in the end. What remains is not a film, not an adaptation, not even a creative dispute, but a battlefield littered with shattered trust, fractured reputations, and questions that will echo through Hollywood for years to come. Because this was never only about costumes or rewrites or scenes. This was about truth and lies, about power and fear, about the way a carefully polished image can crack under the relentless weight of exposure. And now, as fans sit in the rubble, they are left to wonder who really betrayed. Who was it, the actress who painted herself as a victim, while documents revealed her hand in the very choices she condemned? Or was it the director who weaponized evidence and allowed his own wife to step into the flames of scrutiny to protect his name? Or was it an industry that thrives on illusions, that rewards perfection and punishes honesty? And perhaps the most chilling part is that the truth may never be fully known. It may remain scattered across leaks, testimony, and whispers, leaving the public to piece together fragments of a story that was supposed to inspire resilience, but instead revealed the fragility of fame. And as the court prepares its verdict, as studios calculate risks, as fans argue endlessly online, the legacy of this saga is already written, not in box office numbers or glowing reviews, but in the scars it has left on everyone involved. And so the final question that lingers, heavier than all the others, is this: when the dust settles and the lies are stripped bare, will we remember this as the film that brought Colleen Hoover's words to life? Or will we only remember the storm that consumed it?